Even in therapy, whenever someone is like, no, I'm going to change them, I always usually, like, just for me personally, I see that as a reflection of something that you want to change within yourself. People who are very mean, like saying that everyone is mean to them. Like, people are very mean to themselves. Like, people who, like, speak very negatively of themselves. Like, they view the world in a way where they feel like everybody else thinks of them negatively as well. So,
That's
like, often what we struggle with internally that we're not ready to face or that we're not ready to deal with, we often project it onto the people that are closest to us. So if I've probably previously been in an abusive relationship, and I date someone else who has the same traits of the person who abused me before, and I feel like, no, I'm going to change you. You know what I'm trying to say? So I think sometimes it's a trauma response of, like, we go around trying to either like resolve something that has happened to me in the past or like fix something that has happened to me in the past, and I get myself in the same situation hoping that I can change that person to respond differently this time around, without actually realizing that it doesn't work out like that. People often want to change people, but they're not changed.
hectic.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, that I think there's always something underlining, yeah, because like how are you gonna expect me to change when you're not changing? And I think that's where the difference between inspiring or motivating someone to change their habits as opposed to telling someone to change. So like if we're saying that we're gonna start reading, like you would like for me to start reading more, if you're reading often at home, then that's going to encourage me to start picking up a book and reading.
True.
But if you're just going to tell me to start reading and you're just living your best life, then
That's true.
which one is this
Yeah.
one?
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Becoming channel. So, as you can tell, we're doing things a bit differently today. I'm the host, and I'd love to welcome our lovely, most beautiful guest,
This is nice. I like this.
Mrs. Bay. Welcome to Becoming, the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's
This is
just
nice.
such a pleasure to have you. So, today we're going to be having a quick express episode because I want to pick your brain about something that we very commonly hear. You know some things you think they run out of fashion, right? You think a statement is gone and like people don't say it anymore or don't do it, but you realize, no matter what 2020 it is, people are doing it.
Yeah.
And
We don't learn, basically, bottom line.
hey, we're humans.
Bottom line.
We are humans. So it's going to be a two-part question. One, it's the whole thing of how people feel like they can change someone.
Yeah. Abuches.
Is it possible? And how often do you come across that when practicing?
No one can change anyone, guys. Only Jesus can do that. No one can change anyone, but I think there is, what's the word? Like that common thing. I'll just refer to it as a thing for now. But there is that common misconception where people say, like, I thought that I could change him, or I thought that he changed for me, or I thought that she could change for me, whatever the case is, which obviously means then people do sometimes feel like they have an ability to influence someone or to change someone, as they call it. But I personally don't think that that's possible.
But then what happens when you find people who meet certain people and, I don't know, they feel like they're better people, they're better humans, or they do change?
But that's because you've decided to change for yourself because of that person, not that that person is the one that's responsible for changing you. It's like when you're sharing life with someone, when you're just sharing like energy or like space with someone, there are things about them that are bound to trigger like something about you. It's like, for example, you've changed my mind on like various things. You've changed the way in which I see things, like with a lot of things. It's not because you would be like, Nqobile, you need to change this about you and stop doing this and start doing this my way, or stop doing this kanje and start doing it like this. No, it's not because you'd forcefully like do that. It's just because my response to life now has been influenced by my proximity or my closeness to
Okay.
you, right? So that's what happens, but not the change a person that, like, you know, like we sometimes like assume. It's like I always say that whenever people come, like even in therapy, whenever someone is like, no, I'm gonna change them, I always usually, like, for me personally, I see that as a reflection of something that you want to change within yourself. That you
Why?
try. Because often we usually project the dynamics that we're struggling with internally onto the people that we're with. So, for example, if I'm struggling with a part of my life that I can't control, whether it's my money spending habits or my eating habits or my weight or anything like that. Usually, and this, it obviously doesn't always happen like this. Like, this is now,
Okay.
like, you know, but usually I will want to project that desire of control onto something that I feel like I can control.
Okay.
Right? So it's like how people who are very mean, like saying that everyone is mean to them. Like, people are very mean to themselves. Like, people who like speak very negatively of themselves. Like, they view the world in a way where they feel like everybody else thinks of them negatively as well. So,
That's
like,
interesting.
often what we struggle with internally that we're not ready to face or that we're not ready to deal with, we often project it onto the people that are closest to us. I don't know if that makes
It
sense.
does make sense. So, if you and I, right, we're in a relationship, we're looking to get married. I know there's parts of you, in a sense, that could be very either challenging to our values, our morals, our beliefs. And when my friends speak to me about it, I'm like, no, I'm going to change her, or I'm going to influence her to change, etc.
I think that's what probably people need to say. I can influence her to change the way that she does it or the way that she thinks about it based on what I'm doing. But you can't, you get what I'm saying?
I
Like, you
get
can
you.
influence me to change my mind about something based on how you're doing or based on like how you're reacting towards it. But you can't come into my life and physically change something in me. Only I can do that.
Do you think do you think that it's actually coming from a place of ego? If I feel that, sometimes people can be sincere and sound like they
I
really
think
mean what they're saying.
sometimes, yeah.
But do you think sometimes, whether knowingly or
Context, yeah.
unknowingly, do you think it comes from a place of
I
an
think
ego?
sometimes. I think obviously contexts are different and so forth, but I think sometimes it can, because like, why do you think that you can go around changing people? Like, you're not the boss of them, you're not the Jesus of their lives, type of situation. So I think, yeah, sometimes it can come across as ego, obviously depending on the context.
But also, I'm saying sometimes I feel like it's masked, like you can't see the ego. So the
Probably,
mask comes across as sincere. The mask comes
probably.
across, you really love this person, but then
Or
subconsciously, could it be?
100%, 100%. And I think also, it sometimes we think like that as like a trauma response. So if I've been through something, and I'm trying to think of an example. So if I've probably previously been in an abusive relationship, and I date someone else who has the same traits of the person who abused me before, and I feel like, no, I'm going to change you. You know what I'm trying to say? So I think sometimes it's a trauma response of, like, we go around trying to either like resolve something that has happened to me in the past or like fix something that has happened to me in the past. And I get myself in the same situation, hoping that I can change that person to respond differently this time around without actually realizing that it doesn't work out like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I find that interesting because I think that happens often. Because sometimes when people say that I can change this person, etc., it's almost a thing of I've seen this before.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
know it this
Yeah,
time
like I
around,
can
and
fix
I can
it.
fix it. I know what to
Yeah.
do. Does that usually work out, or
No, like I said, like you can't change someone. You can encourage them, you can influence them, but you can't like physically change someone.
and then if you say influence, is there a way they can do it that you can do it in a way that's manipulation or inspiration? I feel like those are the
Both.
different ways.
I think both, because also I feel like if you influence someone to change for themselves, and it's a decision that comes from them, like I said, like these things that I've changed about myself, because you've influenced me to change that. So the change comes from within. So that's an
Okay.
organic change. That's something that I'm conscious of, and that's something that's sustainable. But if I feel like I need to change something because you told me to change something, and like you manipulating me, or like you bullying me, or whatever the case is, to change whatever that thing is, then that's not sustainable, because that's not coming from the core of who I am. That's
Okay.
just me trying to make you happy, basically.
Yeah.
You see, so like it's very.
Then how would I know if I'm inspiring you or manipulating you?
I don't know. I think
Or
maybe
vice versa, how would you be able to feel
I think the
that?
other person's response probably would allude, like how they respond to it probably like allude. I don't know. Maybe your intention as well.
Okay. I think it's also a tricky
It's a tricky
question.
one, yeah.
What makes it tricky is because I think it also really goes with your morals, your values, and your beliefs. Because the inspiration or the manipulation will either stem from that. If I'm inspiring you, it's because we either in some ways are aligned in a lot of our values, morals, and beliefs. So that's how I feel it can be inspired. I think the manipulation comes in if we're not aligned. And I want you to forcefully bend to my values, my morals, and my beliefs,
Which is not fair.
which is not fair.
That's abuse, actually.
It is. That's why I'm saying it's
Yeah.
manipulation. I feel like
Yeah.
then I'll try to use manipulative tactics to get you
get
onto
you.
my side.
Yeah.
Whereas, which can also happen even if you're on the far end. I can
Yeah.
inspire you
Yeah.
towards it.
Yeah.
But I think we're most likely to manipulate if you fully want to bend
Wanna
those to
control.
control those factors of a person.
It's an interesting conversation. I think it's also it's not a linear conversation as well. Like it's quite multifaceted, because there's a lot of dynamics to it. There's a lot of that context can be completely
True.
different. There's a lot of like underlying things that speak to that individual person, you know. So yeah, I think even in speaking about it, there might be things that obviously won't apply to certain situations, or there might be things that we haven't touched on, because it's such a packed concept.
It is. It is a very packed concept. Yeah, this whole thing. I think if the easiest context to put it in is obviously relationships, because the two of us are speaking. But I think when it comes to that, there has to be a level of when you're getting to know the person, especially if it's really going to be something that's intimate, there has to be a level of, what's the word? A lot of the things that you agree on. So if I look at it in relationships, I
Similarities,
can't...
compatibility.
Well, compatibility, but I think, yes, and your morals, values, and beliefs. So if we are looking to get married and our core beliefs and morals are different, I think that whole thing of I'll change the person, I think is not going to work. But even if our morals, our values, and beliefs are the same, there should be certain things that we know that we are going to inspire each other
Yeah.
towards, which is two opposite things.
Yeah.
Because on one end, you might think, okay, does a person have to be perfect? No. But also on the other end, I think if those three pillars are totally not
Different.
aligned and totally different, then you can't really also say that you're going to change the person.
Yeah.
Because I think now the question is, how do you gauge whether you take this further based on the spectrum of I'll change the person? How much of it should they have?
Yeah, yeah.
For, whether
Yeah,
to
no,
think you should or
100%.
shouldn't.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the sort of the
The
trick comes in.
defining line
Yeah, because then
is very narrow.
it's very narrow. Because then the
faint.
other person's going to look for, I want, this person must have 100% of this.
Because it's okay to have things that you can't compromise on. That's why we have preferences, So why go to someone with the idea that you're going to change them, whereas you know when you can see that the way that they are is not, again, aligned to those three pillars, or it doesn't speak to your preference.
I think people always say, oh, I love him, or their energy is so cool. I'll keep them as a friend. That's usually, I think that's always like, there's always some emotion
There's
that's underlying.
always,
Where like this
yeah.
person, you can't change this
There's
person.
always something deeper internally. Whether it's an insecurity, whether it's a trauma, whether it's a misconception, whether it's a need to control, whether it's a personality trait. But there's always, I feel like there's always something deeper underlining that people are just not consciously willing to look at or like to deal with at that time.
I mean, before we close, I think, like we were saying, with regards to, instead of saying that you're going to change someone, so you can inspire someone to change.
Also, before you go to that, sorry. People often want to change people, but they're not changed.
Hectic.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, that I think there's always something underlining, yeah, because like how are you going to expect me to change when you're not
Changing.
And I think that's where the difference between inspiring or motivating someone to change their habits as opposed to telling someone to change. So like if we're saying that we're going to start reading, like you would like for me to start reading more, if you're reading often at home, then that's going to encourage me to start picking up a book and reading. Sure. But if you're just going to tell me to start reading and you're just living your best life, then...
That's true.
Which one is this one?
I think the other edge of what you just said, that's so hectic, that people often want to change people, but they're not changing themselves. Mm-hmm. I think the other side of the sword is that if you change, you might find that there's no need to change that person, leave 100%. Them as they are, and you continue with your own 100%. Journey. So I think sometimes you want to mold something that's not moldable to fit your liking, whereas if you actually change, you realize there's no need to mold that. Let me just leave that and continue and keep moving. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that is
interesting conversation. But thank you so much for having this. This was very like impromptu.
Yeah, it was very
but
impromptu.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like it really got me thinking.
Yeah, it looks like I'm taking over, becoming.
Well, I know about that.
Thank you so much for coming to the episode.
Thank
Where
you for
can people follow you? Where's your practice?
People can follow me on all socials. Don't forget to tell people to like, comment, and subscribe. And share and engage.
Well, let's not tell them to do all the things. This is a new practice. Today, we just need you to comment your thoughts on this.
And subscribe.
Yeah, but our main point is that subscribe.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your days.